All right, we're going to do our Module 2 practice test here. So for number 1, it says, what fraction, decimal, or percent of the grid is shaded? A good study tool would be to hit the pause button and work on this question on your own, and then resume once you have the answer, see if you're right. All right. So what fraction, decimal, and percent is shaded? So when I look at this 10 by 10 grid, we call it a 10 by 10 grid because there's 10 in each row and 10 in each column. So when I have a 10 by 10 grid, I know there's 100 total. So it just wants the shaded pieces. So I'm going to look. I know this whole row is shaded. That's 10. This whole part is shaded. That's 10 more. This whole part is shaded, that's 10 more. So I have 10, 20, 30. Then I'm going to count my little ones that are left. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. So I found 48 of my boxes are shaded in. Remember, a fraction means part over whole. So the part that's shaded is 48. My whole was 100. So 48 hundredths is my fraction. Now you could simplify this by taking both of these, since they're even, and dividing them in half and putting 24 over 50. Again, an even, so I could half those again and get all the way down to 12 over 25, which I can't half. So you are welcome to leave it as the first fraction, or either of these two would be acceptable answers. Now for a decimal, we look back at the part that says per hundred. Remember, with a decimal, per hundred, hundredths place comes after the decimal. We go tenths, hundredths. So it's 2 places after the decimal, which means my 48 has to end at the hundredths box. So when I write 48 over 100 as a decimal, I get 0.48. Now, as a percent, we've talked about percent means per 100 or out of 100. So all I need to do is take away the bottom half of the fraction, which tells me 48 per 100, which is 48%. Please make sure you write your percent sign, because the number 48 is a very different answer than 48%. Right? This would be a 3-point problem. You are getting 1 point for each of these answers: fractions, decimals, and percent. Number 2, which of the following expressions are equivalent to 0.16? Again, we're supposed to select all that apply here. So when I look at this, remember place value. We have the tenths place. This is my hundredths place where the 6 is. So I would have 16 hundredths. So let me see if that's an answer. And yes, it sure is. Remember, 16 hundredths means 16 per 100. So if I take that off, I replace the per 100 with a percent. So just 16%. So let me check out my answers here. Looks like that's an option. And the rest of these look like fractions. So I'm going to see if I can make an equivalent fraction. So when I look at 16 and 100, I notice both of these are even numbers. Even numbers can be divided by 2 or split in half. And remember, to build equivalent fractions, whatever's done to the top has to be done on the bottom. So what is half of 16? That would be 8. Half of 100? That would be 50. So I take a look. Ooh, that one's close. It's 9 over 50, but that's not correct. All right, let's keep going. Can I make another one? Oh, they're both even again. So I could go ahead and half them again. Half of 8, or 8 divided by 2 is 4. 50 divided by 2 is 25, which is this answer down here. I cannot divide anymore. This says 1/6, which would mean 4 would be divided by 4, but I can't divide 25 by 4, so this one doesn't work either. So this is also going to be a 3-point problem. You're going to get a point for each one of the answers that you select that are correct. And that takes us down to our last problem on this first page. Haley said she can make 12 out of 25 blankets for a craft show. What percent of the blankets is she making for the craft show? So when I look at this, my problem is 12 out of 25, which is the fraction 12/25. Now you may use any strategy you want to figure this out on the top. The bottom asks you to use a double number line. So you can use the double number line if you'd rather figure it out that way. If you don't want to use the double number line at first, you could use equivalent fractions as one of your strategies, which means we know percent is per, because that's what we're trying to find, per 100. So how do I get from 25 to 100? Well, I ask myself, how many quarters get to $1? And the answer, of course, is 4. So now I have to take 12 times 4. If you don't know 12 times 4, you can just work it out at the side. 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. So we get 48 hundredths, or 48%. You could also do the division method if you like to divide, and do 12 divided by 25, which, remember, 25 doesn't go into 12, so this is where I add on my 0. 25 does go into 120, and when I think about that, I just count my quarters: 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, so too many. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I got 20 left. So I need another 0. All right, I didn't get that high counting. So 150, 175, 200. There it is exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 200. And we just talked about up at the top, 0.48 would be 48 hundredths, or 48%. So there's 2 ways. It doesn't matter which strategy you use. Another strategy that you can prove your answer with is going to be down here in part B, where you have to use your double number line. So remember, it tells you to write 24 or 12/25 is your start. I need to get it to a percent, which means per 100. So I'm going to turn 25 into 100. So bottom tells me to count by 25s. 25, 50, 75. Top now tells me to count by 12. 12, 24, 36, 48. So I have 48 hundredths, which is 48%. This is a 2-point problem. Part A is going to get you 1 point. Part B is where you get your second point from. All right. And that takes us to number 4. Number 4 says, Michaela bought 14 of 40 packs of baseball cards at the store. What percent of baseball cards did Michaela purchase? Okay, so here's what it says, 14 of 40. You have lots of strategies that you can use. If you would like to divide, you can divide and get 14 divided by 40. Well, 40 doesn't go into 14, so I'm going to have to make this a part because it doesn't go in there a whole. So 40, when I count, I could do 43 times and get myself to 120. I got 20 left over, so I need to bring down another 0. 40 goes into 200 then 5 times, because 5 times 4 is 20. And then I just stick on my extra 0, so I got nothing left. So 0.35 is 35%. If you don't like dividing, then you can also do your equivalent fractions, but you're going to run into a problem. So let's talk about that. 40 times nothing will get me to 100. So I'm going to have to think about all those multiples that we talked about that we could use to get down to 100 from 40. Remember, we talked about a 2, we talked about a 4, a 5, a 20, a 25, a 50. So I'm looking, what could I use that would go into 40 and also be used for 100? So I'm going to just half it here. I'm going to try the 20 option, see if this works. So to get to 20, I'm taking half of 40. I know that I can half 14. Remember, when we're doing our equivalent fractions, if I can't do it to both, then I need to pick a new bottom number. Because like if you picked a 5 here, that would be dividing 40 by 8. You can't divide 14 by 8. So you're going to have to pick a number that you can do both the top and bottom. All right? So half of 14 is 7. And now I can turn 20 into 100 by multiplying it 5 times. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, which means I just take times 5 on the top, which is 35 hundredths, or 35%. Right? So all of your strategies here, any one you want to use is fine. This is worth 1 point, that you can use this strategy to get to your answer. Number 5 is a very similar question to number 2. You're supposed to look at this decimal and select all that apply. So again, when I look at 32.32, I notice this is the tens place. This is the hundredths place. So I would have 32 hundredths. So I'm going to check and see if that's an answer. And it sure is right here. Let's see. I could take off the hundredths. And now instead of 32 per 100, I have 32%. Let's see if that's an answer. That sure is. And now we've got to check the others. Well, I know E doesn't work because 32 is different than 32%. Taking something off, saying you can take $32 off, is very different than taking 32% off. So 32 doesn't work. Now let's check the others. Well, this is a fraction, but it looks like my denominator is actually grown. So is there something I can multiply 100 by to get it to 250? Not an even number, because I'm going to count 100, 200, 300. So I'm going to have to multiply by a decimal, and the number on top is actually smaller than the number on bottom. So we're going to rule that one out. And then let's see if I can turn this fraction into this with equivalent fractions. So I notice these are both even, so I'm just going to half them. Half of 32 is 16. Half of 100 is 50. All right, that didn't work. It got 16 over 25. Well, if I halved this, I would get to 8. If I half this, I would get to 25. So my bottom number's right, but the top number is wrong. And the top number was right, but the bottom number was wrong. So that one doesn't work either. So this is going to give me 2 points. So I'm going to get a point for each one. Make sure you check on your test because sometimes these are going to have 3, 2, 4, maybe all of them correct. It says select all that apply. So make sure you're looking for all the correct answers. All right, number 6. This is another strategy we used using bar diagrams. Henry has to complete 15 chores. So far, he's completed 25% of his chores. Which of the following models is 25%? So here's what I've got to figure out. Which one of these shaded boxes shows 25%? Well, remember, on a bar diagram, the ends are 0 to 100. So when I look, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to count by to get me to 100. So remember when I counted 100 to 100, trying to get 5 spots, that's when I counted my 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So this box would be 20%. So that's not going to be our correct answer. All right, let's check the next one. So 0 to 100. This time it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Remember, 10, counting by tens gets me to 100. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. 2 of those boxes would also be 20%. So can't be that one. This next one, 0 to 100. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. 4 quarters gets me to 100. So I would have 25, 50, 75, 100. And this one section is shaded. I think I found my answer. But I'm going to double check and make sure. 0 to 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I can't get 8 to 100 evenly, so I know that one can't work at all. So my answer is the third bar diagram. Gets me 25%. Bar diagrams is another strategy that we use to show percent. All right, and the last question on this page, Tabitha made 12 out of 20 free throw attempts at practice. What percent of the free throws did she make? So here we go. My fraction looks like this, 12 out of 20. I've got lots of strategies I can use here. I can divide if I want to and take 12 and divide it by 20 and see what I get. I could try to turn this into 100, or we just did bar diagrams. Here's what you just told me. 20 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this is 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, that would get me to 100. All right, so one of those strategies should hopefully work for you. You could also put it on a double number line. if you like that double number line, and you would count by 20s to get to 100. 20, 40, 60, 80. There's my 100 line. All right, so let's give them a shot. So let's start with this one. To get from 20 to 100, I need 5 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So that means I'm going to have to multiply 12 times 5, because remember, whatever we do to the top, we've got to do to the bottom, and I get 60. So 60 hundredths. I could count by 12s, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. 60 over 100 again. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, which I already figured out over here, would be 60. And then if I divide 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 is 5. 120 would be 6. So I got a 0.6, which all of these written as a percent would be 60%. This is a 1-point problem as well. You do not have to show every strategy. Use the strategy that you understand the best. Right, and that takes us to the back page, the front side of it, question number 8. The model shows the percents of students who are not eating PB&J for lunch. So let's look. We just talked about bar diagrams. They go 0 to 100. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which means this bar diagram's counting by tens. So I would have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And it said this showed the percent of students who are not. So 80% are my nots, which means I have 10, 20% that are. These are the ones that are. So let's see what my question said. Can the cafeteria say 25% of students are eating PB&J? So let's look. It said are eating. Well, these are my are nots. These are my R's. Can the cafeteria say 25% are eating? That would be a no. And it says write an argument to defend my solution. So I'm going to say because 20% is less than 25%. So this is going to be a 2-point problem. 1 point that you answer yes or no. 1 point that you then go back and explain. All right. And that takes us to number 9. The graph shows the career interest of students at Linda's school. So if you look, I know this one's kind of hard to see, but this says 12% here. Remember, percent means per 100. So in Linda's school, there would be 100 students because this is giving my percent. So per 100 would be my total number of students. So it says, what fraction of the students are interested in being a nurse? So on my pie chart, I find the nurse, which is right here, and it says 13%. Now read your question carefully, because if you write 13%, you're going to get it marked wrong, because it says what fraction? 13% is not a fraction, so we've got to change it into one. Remember, percent means per 100. So when the percent sign disappears, the per 100 would come back on. So 13 hundredths. All right, the second part of this, using the pie chart, what decimal represents how many students are interested in being a doctor? So I go to the doctor. Oh, and the doctor happens to be 13% as well. So 13%, but again, if I write 13%, I'm going to get it marked wrong because it says write it as a decimal. 13 hundredths, remember, tenths, hundredths. So we would write 13 hundredths. This is going to be a 2-point problem. You get 1 point here, 1 point here. To get both points, you're going to have to make sure you have your fraction. You're going to have to make sure you have your decimal. Read your questions carefully. All right, and the very last question, the 10 by 10 grid or multiple 10 by 10 grids. Identify the percent that's modeled. So when we look, we have the whole grid shaded, so that's 100. We have another whole grid shaded, so that would be another 100. And then when I count, I have 10, there's 10 more, 10 more, 10 more, 10 more. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56 in this box. So I had 256% of my 10 by 10 grid shaded. And this will be a 1-point problem as well. All right, so this test is going to be worth 20 points when it is over. Make sure you go back and rewatch any questions that you had a problem with, and make sure you study for your test. Good luck.